Hello and welcome to Byte Basics. I'm Earl Yeager. On Byte Basics, we plan to cover all of those topics that people treat as if they're common knowledge when it comes to computers, whether or not they are. Today we're going to be looking at web browsers. In specific, we're going to be looking at Internet Explorer. And when it comes to Internet Explorer, there's a lot of things that people just assume you know about the browser, whether or not that's the case. So let's go ahead and take a look at the web browser and all of the different elements of it. So here, when we're looking at Internet Explorer, across the top we have your back and forward buttons, and then we have what's called the address bar. And this address bar is where you would type in your web addresses. So if you know a specific web address, you would type that in there. Now, Internet Explorer also allows you to type search elements right directly into this address bar. So I can type in a specific address to a website, or I can type in a search for other kinds of websites that if I don't know what I'm particularly looking for, I can do either or here in the bar. So if I wanted to go to a particular website, I could click here, type in the website like myepisd.org and hit enter. Notice when I'm typing an actual address, web addresses have no spaces. They have very few special characters, just periods, no apostrophes, none of those kinds of things. And there's often a www at the front, but not always. And they almost always end in either .org, .com, .net. There are a few other extensions that you might find, but those are the most common, .org, .com, and .net. Okay? So when I click enter, I will go directly to that web page. At one point in time, it used to be important for you to type the http://. Most browsers today will automatically assume that that's what you want and put that in for you. So you don't have to worry about typing that portion of a web address. So I can use that to go to a particular website. When my computer's going to a particular website, I will often see some form of indicator, like this swirling little thing here, that shows that it's actually working and trying to load that particular website up. As soon as the website is loaded, the screen will change to the appropriate web page. And there we are. Okay? You can also use this for a search. So if I wanted to search for all of EPISD's websites, I could do a search for just EPISD and either hit enter on the keyboard or click on the little go button here at the end, and it will do a search for EPISD. Well, I waited too long and it assumed that I wanted to go directly to the address. So let me try that one more time. So if I just put EPISD in and hit enter, it will perform a search, and instead I will receive search results for the particular website that I'm going to. And when you receive search results, you'll see all of the different websites that you can potentially be using. I should be receiving search results here. Let's try that one more time. We'll put something else in. So when I type in my search results here, I should get, and there it goes. Just wasn't patient enough. So there it loaded up all of the different searches for EPISD, and I find EPISD where it's located, I find its websites, I find anything related to EPISD with that particular search. And so you notice down here I now have the search bar for Google, which is not the same as this address bar. This address bar is for typing in web addresses as well as potentially doing searches. This is specifically for doing searches. Even if I typed a web address here, I would not go directly to the website. I would instead be going directly to a search for that website and find all the different results instead of going directly to a particular page or site. Okay? So other things that you'll notice on a web browser is often when you're working on web pages, you want to know other little bits of information, and you used to, on other programs, having things like a file menu or an insert menu or other things. often those are hidden from you on a web browser. So if you find a blank spot out here alongside these tabs, if you right-click, click with the other mouse button, you'll notice it has an area for a few different what are called toolbars. They all end in the word bar. So if I'm used to seeing the file menu and those other menus and I would like to see them again, if I right-click and I choose the menu bar, you'll now see that I have File, Edit, View, Favorites, so I have all of those toolbars showing up. If you don't want them, you can right-click. Now it's checked. When I uncheck it, it goes away. So you can hide or show any of those toolbars if you're used to having seen it on previous versions of a particular web browser. So there's the Favorites bar, which is what Internet Explorer calls bookmarks. We have Favorites bar. There's a Command bar, which includes like the little home button, a print command, a tools button. So there's several different options you have there. And you can turn on multiple ones. So if I wanted multiple bars, I can turn on multiple bars. Now one different bar is the status bar. And on Internet Explorer, the status bar is actually at the very bottom. It will show up down here. And that helps you to see whether or not it's searching. When you hover over a link, you'll notice that on that bottom bar there, it shows me exactly what that link is when I hover over it. It shows me exactly where this will go to. So if you're interested in having that status bar there, you can have that status bar. Also, when you click on a web address, when you have that status bar there, it gives you progress to let you know when it's opening and how long it's taking. It'll often have, if something's taking a while, it may often show up down here in addition to you seeing this circling little area up here at the top. Of course, it doesn't want to cooperate with me at the moment. All right, so you can turn toolbars on and off with the browser. Now, sometimes you want to know whether or not you're looking at the same version of a web browser as someone else. Every web browser, like any other software, comes in multiple versions. Updates come out constantly, and whether or not you're on the current version may depend upon whether or not you're seeing the same thing as I'm seeing. So if you're curious as to whether or not you are using the same version of a web browser as I am, if we look back here on the browser, over here on the corner we see this little gear, and this gear has the word Tools next to it. When you click that gear, underneath the gear, one of the things is About Internet Explorer. That option will show us what version we're on. Now, right now it shows that I'm on Internet Explorer 10. More specifically, when it looks at version, I'm on 10.0.92. And these numbers will change fairly often. You can see that anytime you come in and look out here. Now, mine is checked to install new versions automatically. You don't necessarily have to have that checked, in which case you would then want to install updates manually on your own. Okay? So if you want to be on the latest version, you want to make sure that you're currently on this version. And it says update version is 10.0.7. So if you're looking online to download it, that would be the version number. Okay? Also underneath this Tools button, you'll find several other options that are here. One of the things is a zoom option. The zoom makes things bigger or smaller on the page. Sometimes that's useful. Let me scroll down to where we can see some text on the page here. If we're looking at articles, if we're looking at information online, if the print is too small, we can utilize the zoom feature to make it larger, and now everything looks larger. Of course, that does mean we now have to scroll left and right in order to see everything. So we can change the zoom setting, and notice it tells me exactly what the zoom setting is set to, and you can go up quite a bit. There's 200%, there's 400%, so you can really zoom in and out. It does require considerable more scrolling the more you zoom. So depending upon what you're looking at and whether it's important to get in close or not, you have that option to change the zoom. And I can always set back to 100% to go back to the standard view. Now, you'll notice under zoom, zooming in and out can be done just by clicking on zoom in or zoom out, but it also gives us a keyboard shortcut. Control plus and Control minus on the keyboard will manage the zooming for us as well. So if I press Control and the plus key, I begin zooming in. Control and the minus key will have me zoom out. So I can zoom in or out on a web page. If someone has done that unintentionally and either things are way too small or way too large, you may want to go under the zoom option and choose 100% to go back to standard. Okay? Other useful things to keep track of underneath here. Also underneath the area there, there's a button that says Internet Options. Internet Options is where all of the settings for Internet Explorer are controlled. Things like your home page, when you download a file, where it goes, all of that stuff is controlled under the Internet Options choice. So when we go to Internet Options, what we find is this little pop-up window, and this pop-up window has lots of important information on it. It says Home Page here and has a blank. This home page is when you first open your web browser, what page does it go to? And if it doesn't go to the page you want it to, you can type the page in this address. So if I wanted to use something different than EPISD, I could instead get rid of EPISD and type in www.google.com. I'll hit OK. And now when I first open my browser, I'm going to go ahead and close it and reopen it. So when I first open my browser here, let me go ahead and close everything here. So I'm going to make sure Internet Explorer is closed. When I first open it, you'll notice that it will now go to Google as its home page instead of the EPISD page. So it's already telling me it's looking for Google. I see the little status thing going saying that it's working. And here in a moment, we'll see the Google homepage. And there's the Google homepage. Now you may see this message when you have a browser open that says, would you like to make whatever the browser is your default browser? What a default browser is it's the browser that anytime you open a quick link from your email, anytime you click on a shortcut that's on your computer that goes to a web page, which browser opens that page? And so that's controlled, that is the default browser option. And whichever browser you use most often is the one you want to be set as your default. So I don't use Internet Explorer that often, so it's not my default. So that's why it's asking me whether or not I want to make it my default. So I'm not going to choose that option. Also, under the tools, going back to the tools, so we had set the home page. So I'm going to go back to Internet Options. So there's the home page. I'm going to return mine back to the EPISD home page. Down below here, we have the area for browsing history. Your browsing history is a record of every website you've gone to, also any kind of information you may have typed into pages. So notice it keeps temporary files, which is called the cache. So every website gets cached. History is a record of all of the pages you've been to. So if you've forgotten which page you were on, you can look back at the history to try to find it. Cookies are information that a website uses to track bits of information about you. So things you've typed into a web page, it will use that to pull it back up the next time you visit, so you don't have to re-enter those things again. Passwords that you have saved. So if it's a personal computer, you may be saving passwords for different websites. If that's the case, your saved passwords will be in here as well as information from forms and things that you might be doing. If you wish to clear that information out, the delete button will let you access the different kinds of information that you can clear, and you can choose which parts you want cleared and which ones you don't, and then you can press delete, and it will then clear all of that information out on your computer. And then that information is wiped away, and so you don't have to worry about someone potentially automatically finding your password to get into a website, or if you want to get rid of all of the history of every website you've been to, you can. If you need to clear the cache because a website has been updated and you keep seeing the old version, all of that information is cleared through the delete here under the history area. Okay. Other information that you can find here in Internet Options. Across the top, we have security, privacy, content, connections, programs, advanced. A lot of this is stuff that you won't be needing to make use of. But under security, if you're finding that it keeps telling you that it won't let you go to certain websites, you most often want this set to medium high. If you're having problems, it may have been errantly set higher, and you may have the browser telling you it won't open certain pages because of that. So you may want to have this set to medium high. That's kind of the default level. So sometimes having that security setting set too high can sometimes be a problem, so you want to check that. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and press OK here. The next thing I want to show you on your browser is also here under the tools. So when you're looking at tools here, one of the things here is view downloads. So downloads, anytime you download a file, a record of those files you've been downloaded is here in the view downloads area. So it would list all of the different files that I've downloaded. You can clear that record by hitting clear list. And on the opposite side here, there's a button that says options. This options link will let you see where it's going to be putting the files when it downloads them. So if every time you download a file, it automatically goes to your downloads folder and you don't want it to do that, then you may want to choose where you want it to go. So instead of my downloads folder, I could browse and tell it that I want it to go to a different folder. So if I wanted it to be my desktop, I could hit browse. I could then choose the desktop from the options that show up. I could choose desktop, hit desktop, select folder, and now it will be the desktop folder when it downloads. I'm not going to actually keep that setting, so I'm going to hit cancel. But that's how you would change where Internet Explorer is putting the files when it downloads. So you want to make sure that under options here, it's set to where you really want them to go. Otherwise, you may not be able to easily find those files when they're being downloaded. Okay? Other information that is useful for you to know are the favorites or bookmarks. So you have the ability to create bookmarks to different websites. You just hit the little star key here at the top, and any page I'm on, I can click on star, and when I click on star, I have the option to add the page to my favorites. So I can always add additional favorites. I can also manage my favorites. So you notice there's folders here. I can have additional folders. You can just right-click and add folders here. I'm sorry, it's the drop-down here, and we can add to favorites, we can add to a bar, we can organize our favorites. While we're organizing our favorites, it will actually let us add new folders. We can move these around. We can rename anything that needs to be renamed, and we can delete them. So things like my Eduphoria link, if I wanted to delete it, I would select it, and then I would hit delete, and it would let me delete it. If I wanted to create a folder to hold all things Eduphoria, I could create new folder, type whatever I want to call it, in this case Eduphoria. And then I could drag this into there, and it would put it into the Eduphoria folder. I'll go ahead and delete that folder. I don't need it for just the single item. It asks me if I'm sure when I'm deleting, and there I am. Okay? So you can keep your favorites organized however you want by using folders and by adding your favorites and sorting them around here. Again, that's found underneath the star, and then you would click on the little drop down here and choose Organize Favorites to adjust those. Okay? The Favorites bar, remember when I was talking about bars earlier, one of the bars is the Favorites bar. If I have that turned on, I have different websites that are on that Favorites bar. So if I want a very quick way of having access to a favorite, I can, using this, control what things show up on my favorites bar. So if I look at my favorites bar, it shows me which websites are on the bar, and while I'm managing my favorites, organizing my favorites, I have access to the favorites bar, and I can move things, delete them, remove them from the favorites bar. So if I want to have that bar have specific things on them, I can move things in and out here. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the favorites bar using right-click and unchecking it. Okay, so there are several other things that we might take a look at here. The next thing I want you to see is how to make a shortcut on your desktop. Often we have websites that we use regularly, and we'd like to be able to just have a link on our desktop that lets us just double-click on it and go directly to a specific web page. So if we want to do something like that in Internet Explorer, the way we would do that is first you'd go to the website you want to make the link with. So I will use our EPISD homepage as our example. When we're on the EPISD homepage, I'm going to restore down my window. And what that means, instead of being full screen, it's going to be a part of the screen. So now it's just a portion of the screen here. So if I wanted a quick link on my desktop to the EPISD homepage, right here on the address bar where I see the URL typed, just to the left of that you will see an icon. This icon will be different for different web pages. Some web pages have just a generic Internet Explorer icon. Others have an icon specific to the website. In this case, we see our EPISD logo here. Notice when I hover over it, it says drag to taskbar to pin the site. I can drag this either down to the taskbar, this bar down here, to pin it here, to put it on there, or I can drag it directly to my homepage and my desktop. And when I drag it to my desktop and let go, it will put a link on the desktop. And when that link shows up, if I double click it, it will go directly to the EPISD page. So if you want to be able to set it up to go directly to a specific page, that would be how you can achieve that. So that from now on, when I go to that link, it will take me directly to EPISD. So I can use that as a quick way to set up direct links to specific websites. Okay, that's pretty much everything we have for you today on Internet Explorer. So thank you again, and please join me again on Byte Basics. Also, please follow the EPISD TV Studio on Facebook and or on YouTube. They're also available on Twitter at EPISD TV Studio. So please follow us and keep watching.